I can tell you now that my client will likely test positive. I don't think that she's currently under the influence at this time. I've met with Ms. Cummins on numerous occasions, and I don't see a change in her behavior.
The defendant drove here and will be leaving here again in a vehicle.
We've got a problem, obviously. Are you sure?
This druggy defendant walked into court high as a kite like it was just another Tuesday, and she genuinely thought nobody would notice. But when the judge finally catches on, the whole courtroom goes dead silent like they just watched a live car crash. This one's honestly one of the wildest hearings I've seen in a minute. If you guys like chaotic courtroom content like this, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. I post stuff like this every single day. Let's dive in here and watch this courtroom disaster unfold.
Yes, Your Honor. Prior to proceeding with sentencing, Your Honor, I'm requesting that the defendant undergo a UA. Based on my observations, the observations of law enforcement, and the observations of court personnel, I have reason to believe that the defendant is impaired or under the influence. She is currently subject to bond conditions to where she is not to consume illegal controlled substances or alcohol, and is subject to random UA, breath, or blood tests. And based on that and the seriousness of these proceedings, I believe that my request for UA is reasonable.
Ms. Premier, what's your position on that?
Your Honor, I would object. My client is not under the influence of any illegal substances. She does take prescription medication.
Yeah, based on this lady's body language, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say she's not just under the influence of some ibuprofen. This feels more like a cocktail of courtroom anxiety, poor life choices, and whatever was left in her glove box.
Oh, so Judge, we would object at this time.
Well, I think the number one question I've got is, does your client actually take prescription medications? And if so, what are the side effects or contraindications?
Judge, she takes, it's like a non-narcotic, but it's for muscle relaxer.
Does she take all of those simultaneously, or are they staggered throughout the day?
Judge, she takes in the morning, and then the other one she takes at nighttime.
Mr. Mosher, what's the basis? What phenomena or symptoms have you observed that makes you think that a UA may be appropriate at this time?
Your Honor, the behaviors I'm seeing, I would associate with what I've observed previously, what law enforcement described to me as tweaking.
The prosecutor called her a tweaker like that's just standard courtroom vocabulary now. What's next? Your Honor, she's giving crackhead energy? Honestly, I didn't know we were handing out street diagnoses with the charges here.
And I can try to bring the officer in if you want to hear more from him, if that's the case, Your Honor.
I think the best way to handle that is we bring him in and we actually swear him in, and I'll allow you to ask your questions, and then I'll allow Ms. Premier to do that.
Your Honor, he got called for a EMS run on a life flight, but he believes there's other personnel to cover, so he said it'd take him about 5 minutes to get here.
Okay, if we can stand in recess at this point, I will caution you, Ms. Premier and Ms. Cummins, that the underlying conviction in this case is in fact for unlawful possession of a controlled substance, which is methamphetamine. And if in fact if the court orders that you were to submit to a UA, I'm going to be very, very concerned if in fact you test positive. And maybe we think about that for a few minutes, and maybe.
I mean, I can tell you now that my client will likely test positive. I don't think that she's currently under the influence at this time. I've met with Ms. Cummins on numerous occasions, and I don't see a change in her behavior. That's my observation. Clearly, she does have a drug problem. That's why the plan was to get her on probation, get her into a drug and alcohol evaluation, and then hopefully get her into treatment. But personally, I don't think that she's under the influence today.
Well, okay, she does have a bond condition then that requires her not to utilize drugs. Additionally, she's a convicted felon at this point. There's an admonition, I'm sure, from Judge Velez that she wasn't to utilize any substances between now and then, or not to engage in any unlawful activities. And the concern becomes, okay, you know, based on my fairly knowledgeable experience with this, there's a fairly short lifespan on the metabolism rate of the methamphetamine compound. So that would indicate most likely recent or heavy usage. So, Mr. Mosher, if we assume for a second that she's going to test positive and she does not challenge it any further, what would the state's position be?
Your Honor, I to some extent, I would leave that to the court. I'm just concerned if Ms. Cummins is impaired to, and this isn't the first time I've encountered this type of situation. I've taken the same approach. Given the seriousness of the situation, I'm concerned with going forward with sentencing if she is in fact test positive.
If that's the case, then I most likely will probably agree with the state because the last thing they'll really want is an individual who ostensibly is under the influence, particularly if her counsel has a good faith basis to believe that she will test positive, and we will continue the sentencing, and I will probably want her taken into custody until she presents with a clean urine sample, and then secondly, she'll be tested before her next sentencing hearing. So why don't I go off the record? Ms. Premier, you go and talk to your client for a minute while we wait for the officer, and then you let me know what you want to do after having time to consult with your client.
Judge, I have consulted with her. Well, I'll talk to her and then I'll be back in a few minutes. That's fine.
All right, we'll stand in recess.
She's not just cooked, she's the whole reason the microwave's sparking right now. And just wait, because the judge is about to hit that eternal I'm done switch and is about to end this whole circus with precision here.
Ms. Premier, I've provided you an opportunity to confer with your client in confidence in regards to the state's request for a pre-sentencing UA. They've at least proffered a good faith basis, and you've at least proffered some disturbing facts. I left the ball in your court. The officer is now present and can provide the court with his testimony. Have you, after discussing with your client, how do you desire to proceed at this point?
Well, Judge, I mean, she will test positive. I don't know that the officer's testimony is needed today. I don't know if he's ever even met her previously, but Judge, I could make arrangements for her to get a drug and alcohol evaluation between now and her next sentencing. It is my understanding from my client that she has been, since her release from jail, she has had long periods of sobriety and then would relapse. She has had two recent deaths. A stepson of hers passed away in June, and then recently a friend of hers committed suicide. So that triggered her usage. She does believe that she can maintain sobriety and doesn't feel the need that she needs to be placed into custody in order to be sober. I will tell the court that she does have 2 young children, which she has custody of, and maintains the home for those children. So my concern is if she does go into custody, or if the court orders her into custody, that this could trigger a whole sync case and the kids being placed in DCF custody and just disrupting the whole family.
Where's the natural father at, or the significant other?
So the oldest child, her father is incarcerated somewhere, and then the youngest child, he lives in Wallace County and has weekend visitation.
Oh, nice. So she's not just a full-time tweaker, she's also out here forgetting she has kids. You can literally see the judge losing faith in humanity in real time.
Mr. Mosher, I'm willing to accept the proffer of Ms. Premier Chavez that her client will test positive for today's purposes. Is that adequate for your purposes, or do you still want the officer to testify?
Your Honor, I would tell you that in the recess, I told the officer what he would be expected to testify about. One of the things that he expressed his concern to me, that his greatest concern based on his observations was the fact that the defendant drove here and will be leaving here again in a vehicle, and he did not feel that that was a safe condition based on how she presented to him.
I'm not gonna lie, I actually feel a little scared for her right now. But let's just be real, she signed up for this crash course in life choices. And just wait till you hear how far she actually drove while floating in outer space. It's absolutely insane.
Mr. Premier, where does your client live?
She lives in Deerfield.
And how far from Tribune is that?
Like an hour and a half, hour and 15, I would say.
Where are the children at now?
I'm sorry.
Where are the children at now?
Oh, they took the bus home from school, and so they should be at that residence.
Who lives in the residence besides the defendant and the children?
Nobody else.
Are there family members in the town where she lives at?
No, Your Honor.
We've got a problem, obviously. Are you sure?
Judge, she could make, if the officer's concerned about her driving, Ms. Cummings could make arrangements for somebody to come pick her up and drive her back, and then they could possibly come and retrieve the car with someone else if the officer has concerns about her driving.
Well, I would think that Ms. Cummins would be concerned about her driving because the officer ostensibly has a good faith basis to issue yet another charge, and I'd be worried if I were her about having a potential another conviction.
I mean, yeah, I get it. The defense attorney's just doing her job, but I mean, at this point, she's basically trying to put out a house fire with the Capri Sun. And seriously though, how do you even drive high for over an hour without crashing? I sneezed one time with both eyes closed and almost end up in a ditch.
Mr. Mosher, I don't know what facilities are available up there or what programs are available. But if I order her to be taken into custody until she gives a clean UA, is there anything that can be done to ensure those kids are taken care of until she's released and can pass the UA? I don't want them left alone.
Yeah, I understand the court's concern, and I do not know because, Deerfield is Kearney County, I believe, and I'm not sure what's available there, Your Honor.
Well, I suppose an order for protective custody could be issued, but that would need to originate from the county where the children are at. Am I right on that?
Yes, Your Honor. I believe that is correct.
I'm going to order that the defendant be taken into custody until she completes a urinalysis and is clean. I'm going to ask that the county attorney contact the Kearney County attorney and take the children into protective custody, and we'll let it fall out from there. I don't think we can jeopardize the safety of those children if mom is in a remission right now. That means those drugs may be prevalent in the house. It's certainly not a lifestyle those kids need to be exposed to. And then we're going to go ahead and reschedule the sentencing in this matter. Ms. Chavez, Mr. Mosher, how likely is it that you can get that accomplished, or what happens to those kids if, for example, you can't get hold of Mr. Gallegos?
I don't know. They're obviously, from my opinion, I guess they would be unsupervised, which is not a good situation, Your Honor.
As an alternative, I think DCF could be contacted and they could take those kids into protective custody as well.
I know we joke a lot on here, but man, this one just hits different. I seriously feel so bad for those kids. Some people just treat parenting like a side quest they never wanted, and sadly, it's just way too common nowadays.
Judge, my client believes that if she were to reach out to the youngest child's father, that he could possibly care for the children instead of placing them into custody until she's released.
Is this something that can be accomplished fairly quickly?
Yes.
All right, I can next 5 minutes.
Yeah, can we take a recess to find out if that can be accomplished, Your Honor?
That's what I was going to suggest. All right, we're going to stand in recess. In all likelihood, the defendant would test positive for methamphetamine on this date, the date of her sentencing. So with that being said, that brief overview, Ms. Premier, what's your client's position at this point?
Judge, I wanted to let you know I spoke with Retta Underwood, who is the maternal aunt of Miss Cummings. She's actually on the line. I just had her hold on so that if you wanted to hear from her personally, you could. She is willing to go over to the house and pick the girls up. They're out of school for the remainder of the day and the remainder of the weekend. So she's able to care for them.
Okay, very good. So, Ms. Farrer, I don't need to speak to her. I mean, I'm going to rely upon what you've advised me. The biggest thing I wanted to make sure is that those children were protected and they're not sitting in a home without somebody taking care of them. And if you feel comfortable with those representations, then at some point we have to rely upon that. I would rather they were in the custody of a family member as opposed to being taken into foster care, for example, whatever the situation may be. So with that being said, we are not going to have the sentencing on this date. We're going to take Miss Cummins into custody, and she's going to remain there until she tests positive for a urinalysis.
You mean negative?
I mean negative for a UA. The other concern that I've got is, does that satisfy the inquiry of the state, or is the state looking to revoke her bond in its entirety, or will that suffice for now?
That will suffice for now, Your Honor.
She really just got let off the hook. Like, this whole thing wasn't 1 inch away from total disaster. Her bond could have been pulled. Her kids could have ended up in the system. I mean, it would have been a full-blown mess. And honestly, if this isn't a wake-up call that makes her change her life, then I honestly don't know what will. Because she is definitely dancing on the edge right now.
The other thing, I'm going to add some additional conditions of your bond here, and that's going to be that you are going to have to undergo at your expense every Monday and Thursday until the date of your sentencing a urinalysis, and it needs to be at somebody reputable. I know in Finney County, Excelicare will do theirs, and some of the trucking companies will do those, and they're certified. If you don't do it, you got a big problem. So that's Monday and Thursday. I want those results submitted to Mr. Mosher's office no later than 5 o'clock on those 2 days. Finally, be prepared at your next sentencing hearing. You're going to be subjected to a UA before we ever commence with the actual sentencing itself. Are there any other conditions that the state would request at this time?
No, Your Honor.
All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look for a new sentencing date. I would probably encourage you, Ms. Premier, just like you indicated earlier, that between now and the next sentencing date, that you obtain some type of drug evaluation if possible. If not, it'll be ordered pursuant to the PSI. All right, so in the interim, Ms. Cummins, you got your marching orders. So unfortunately, you're going to have to do those UAs, and they're not cheap on Monday and Thursday of each week. You kind of brought this on yourself, but I'm sorry you got to incur those expenses, but it's better than the alternative, don't you think?
Yes, very much so.
Okay.
And those need to be faxed or emailed to my office by 5 p.m. on the day of the test, correct, Your Honor?
That's correct. It has to be from a reputable or certified individual testing agency. So, for example, I had a case one time where domestic matter, but the husband was utilizing heroin and meth, and the judge ordered him to submit to a UA. Well, he took a video of himself taking a pee and submitted that to myself and the court. No, that doesn't work. Then he tried a home kit remedy. No, that doesn't work. I want it from an agency because he was manipulating it. So that's why I want it to be from somebody reliable.
Yeah, let's really hope no more proud tweakers feel inspired to send homemade bathroom confessionals to the prosecutors. I mean, that's not the influencer arc you think it is. And honestly, I think she got off way easier than she should have here. I mean, I don't know what you guys think, but with those kids involved, I feel like holding her without bond would have actually made sense for once. But yeah, drop your thoughts in the comments, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And please don't film yourself peeing.